When I first started off in my bodybuilding journey, I made a ton of mistakes along the way. I used to overtrain, I used to just have a lot of incorrect form, incorrect techniques, and a lot of the fundamentals for my training has shifted massively over the last few years. And there's a huge reason why so many people today in the fitness industry and in the scene are lost and confused. It's because there's so much information online, and a lot of it is actually quite misleading. So in this video, I'm going to go over 5 super common gym mistakes, which a lot of people do, especially it's what I used to do as a beginner as well. And I'm going to show you exactly what you should be doing instead and how this is going to get you better results in the gym. Mistake number 1 is just training far too frequently. A lot of people train in the gym 5-6 days per week, and this is something which I used to do, and I used to think that it was the most productive way to train, and that if I took too many rest days, I was just going to build muscle. Whereas over the last couple months, when I've cut this in half and just started training 3 days per week, I've seen the best, most consistent gains in my life. And the reason for this is that training 5-6 days per week is just way too much stimulus on your nervous system. And you build muscle outside of the gym. You don't build muscle in the gym. And so if you're just training 5-6 days per week, it causes a lot of stress, a lot of fatigue, and you're not therefore prioritizing rest and recovery. So I found that once you give yourself a full day of rest in between, for example, I train Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, it just gives your joints, your tendons, your connective tissue, and your central nervous system enough time to actually fully recover so that when you go to the gym, you're fully fresh, your strength is high, your energy is high, and your motivation's there, so that you're ready to go and you can actually push harder and hit PRs. And the only thing that matters in the gym is, are you making consistent progress in terms of progressive overload? Because if your strength isn't going up, you're not building muscle, and it doesn't matter how often you train in the gym. The second mistake is slowing down the tempo too much. Now, obviously, it's important in your rep range that you're controlling the weight and you're not just reactively going through the whole process way too fast. But it's also important to note that if you're intentionally slowing down the tempo, like I see a lot of people doing, where they're counting out the negative for 4, 5, or even 6 seconds, then you're expending a lot of energy and fatigue into a part of the rep which isn't as productive. It's the concentric part or the positive part of the rep range which has the highest potential for motor unit recruitment and type 2 muscle fibers. So if you really want to get the most out of your set, you should be aiming to do as many concentric or positive reps as possible. And you should control the negative, but it's when you start to slow this down is where it really hurts people, because you're expending all of their energy on the part of the rep which isn't going to give them the same amount of results. So I would rather that people do 8 reps in a set where they're controlling the negative but they're not purposely slowing it down, than someone who purposely slows down the negative and then only gets 5 concentric reps. Because it's going to lead to more muscle growth and more strength, and it's a lot more efficient and productive. The third mistake is something which I struggled with massively, and this is just doing way too high volume when you're training. So as you go through the workout, as you induce fatigue, each and every subsequent set offers less and less potential growth and potential stimulus. So you can get to the point where you're training in the gym, but you've got everything that your body can get out of it, and there's no more real growth potential. And all you're really doing is you're just doing a lot of sets which are just going to exhaust you and affect your recovery and induce far too much fatigue, whereas you're not really getting hardly any growth out of it. You might be getting 1 or 2% more growth, but it's just not worth the impact it's going to have on your body in terms of fatigue and in terms of your ability to recover. So I found that the sweet spot is just doing around 10 to 12 sets per workout. I used to be in the gym for an hour and a half all the time when I would train, and it's not until recently when I cut this back and I just do 10 to 12 sets, I found that my recovery goes up massively and my ability to consistently make strength gains and hit PRs has also improved drastically. So it's important to note that volume is not king when it comes to hypertrophy. It's just doing the basics and doing basic, hard, intense sets instead of doing huge amount of sets and huge amount of volumes, but dropping down the intensity. Because it's in those last few reps as you get close to failure where you actually build muscle. And the way to maximize this is just by reducing the amount of sets which you're doing in a session. Mistake number 4 is not resting long enough in between each set. if you're someone who thinks you need a lot more volume than you do, which is what I used to think, then a lot of times you just end up rushing in between sets and you just rest for a minute or 90 seconds when you're in between sets. And when you do this, your ability to build muscle in these subsequent sets is going to be severely compromised because you're still massively fatigued, your heart rate's still elevated, and therefore when you go into the set, it means that your strength is going to be compromised, your energy is compromised, and your ability to recruit muscle units and recruit muscle fibers is going to go down drastically. So many people think that they need more volume than they actually do, which is why they rush through the workout. Whereas if you give yourself a proper amount of time to recover in between sets, like 3 to 4 minutes, it's going to mean that you need significantly less volume to actually hit that muscle protein synthesis threshold or just to induce a lot of growth. So instead of thinking about doing more, think about doing less, but increasing the amount of rest times you do in between each set so that when you do the set, it's more productive, you're getting a higher ROI for the energy you put in, and your strength is going to go up in the subsequent sets. Mistake number 5 is something I did for years, and it's training to failure too often. So I used to always train to failure because I thought it was by far the most productive way to train. Whereas in the last few months, what I've done is I've actually just left 1 rep in reserve. So you should still be training really, really hard, but you should train to the point where you could maybe do 1 more rep, but then it's going to be a huge grinder and you're really going to have to push hard to do that last rep. It's actually more productive to just take this rep off and just stop when you maybe had that 1 rep in reserve. And the reason why this works so well is because it just creates way too much fatigue if you go to failure. And also, you'll find that your muscle fiber activation in that last set isn't really there because you've already kind of maxed out the growth that you can get from that set when you've still got 1 rep in reserve. And so all you're really doing is expanding yourself, putting in a lot of fatigue for very little benefit in that last rep. And you're going to find that if you keep training to failure, all of your subsequent sets are also going to take a hit and be less productive. So I found that when I just started tapering this back, leaving 1 rep in reserve, my ability to consistently make strength gains and hit PRs in the gym went up massively, and I was consistently making progress.